All right, welcome. I am going to go ahead and get this started now. So for tonight's, I guess, Tuesday evening politics video session, I'd like to keep it fairly short, but um, this is a very important topic because I'm going to be going over how to uh, explore and begin to participate in your municipal government. And municipal governments are probably often overlooked in part because they're difficult to pronounce, but also because there's no place on earth that is arguably, in theory, harder to hide things from the people than closest to them. And yet, for that reason, I think we should ask the question, just do a survey here and say, what percentage of people are, familiar with national politics versus state versus municipal politics. And I think we each know of people who are fairly engaged in their very local units of government and how to participate in those things. And very often it's the people who have been living in a certain area for like 50 plus years, they're multi generational families in the area, and so on. Um, then there tends to be a lot more investment in how things are run and a lot more awareness of where we've been. But I fear that a lot of that institutional knowledge has been lost, and so it is our duty to go and find that, and so that we can also know how do we keep our government in check at the local level. Um, and under the design of the Constitution by the founding fathers, you look at the Ninth and Tenth Amendments, and it's like amazingly clear that the greatest degree of autonomy is actually meant to be at the local level. So the municipal government should, in theory, actually be, frankly, the most flexible and the most powerful government there is. I mean, yeah, there are certain enumerated powers in the federal government and the state government because they each have a constitution that they operate according to, or are at least supposed to. Um, but what's happening in your municipal government? If nobody's watching that, then it would be uh, painfully easy, I guess, for people to launder money and rob you of your rights and all that stuff. So um, this is where the rubber hits the road, I suppose. And I'm going to take an attitude. I'm just going to kind of get some of my raw reactions to uh, my own town's website for the municipal government. And you can follow along. You don't have to be a resident in the same city that I'm at to begin to exercise some curiosity about your municipal government, how it operates, and how you can get involved, how you can help the right things to happen and prevent wrong things from happening. This is obviously something we all have a concern in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And just for context here, I just came back from the city council meeting, which they have on Tuesday nights here in my town. And share this. There we go. So yeah, my city here is American Fork, Utah. So you go to americanfork.gov, and it's cool. There's like a picture of a city hall, and yeah, I'll admit when I go to a website, there's usually a high degree of overwhelm if there are lots and lots of features and functionality available. I think they've done a fairly neat job of trying to make this website tidy and make things findable. So you have these kind of buttons to, do some of the most commonly engaged in activities, city news, calendar. So this is the city council meeting right here on the calendar that I just went to. Uh, Summer movie series, right? Um, yeah, so just some of my immediate knee-jerk reactions here. Um, Obviously, if you need to go pay bills for your utilities or something like that, this is kind of like the introduction to your city, kind of like paying your rent with your landlord or whoever, or paying your mortgage payment, getting your bank password set up. This is kind of everyday life. It's pretty mundane, pretty routine, right? Um, but there's some good things here. Some things that they're obviously kind of slick, and I've paid my utility bills. I actually have it set up through AutoPay, so I haven't had to worry about this website for a long time. Um, but apart from that, you probably want to go like poke around and just see. And I invite you to do this. Just like explore what does your city have to offer? What does your city government think that it's responsible to do? And this will inevitably highlight opportunities for you to get involved Um, and I'm not saying everything that a city government does is right. This is just to be super clear. I'm like honestly taking a rather adversarial position anytime I scrutinize a government because I want to ensure that it actually stays within the confines that are reasonable and respects people's rights. So, all right, apply for blah 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 licenses, permits. You want to access? Okay, so I want to. So that's kind of a I don't know, maybe a catch-all tab for stuff, things to do. Okay, that sounds kind of touristy. Like, hey, it's summer vacation or you're bored or whatever. Services and info. So this is actually great. So if you were doing like your citizenship in the community merit badge for the Boy Scouts, this is something that I did back in the day. And I was rather young to be getting. I won't say it's too young to get involved in your local community and so on because you need to know where things are. Um, but there were a lot of things that I didn't have experience with, and so I couldn't really contextualize. So like uh, very brief sidebar. I went to like a small claims court, for example, back in the day, and it was a wild experience. Um, I think we learn a lot more by doing though. When there's a need we personally have, you know, just poking around to satisfy a school essay requirement or merit badge requirement, it's just kind of jumping through hoops oftentimes. But when there's a need, you got to go find something, get something done. This is a lot better. So yeah, fire and rescue, cemetery, about the city, public works, senior center, right? So if you want to look up those things and business and development. So like, I'll be point blank. This is probably the biggest red flag and probable point of disagreement that I have with the city government here. Just for context, I did just file last Friday to run for city council here in my town in American Fork. And this is important to me because I want to act as a powerful check against government overreach. And there's really no better way, I think, to do that than to get involved in whatever ways that you can and that are inspired to where you can help contribute solutions. And it doesn't mean you always get along with other people or agree with them on everything. So the reason why, I don't know, maybe if you want to think about this, I think this is one of those things that's just kind of it's this shapeshifter that's just kind of morphed into the public awareness, but it's so ubiquitous, it's so commonplace. It's like the cracks in the sidewalk that we don't even think about them that they're there. We just take for granted that they're there. Um, Business and development. What is this doing in a municipal government? Like, obviously, yeah, if you have a town, then the people of said town want to make their town attractive to people who want to come in and uh, bring businesses with them and bring money and bring jobs and all that. And I get that, right? But that's a matter of the people representing themselves well as the true public works of the city, being well maintained and so on, right? And being amenable and having like city codes that are amenable and fair, so that people actually want to come in and do business in your town, or existing residents uh, will want to think about starting a business in your town. So obviously, you want to have resources in this regard, right? But at the same time, at what cost, right? And if you're going to do something in this regard, it needs to be actually like pursuant to a charter. And this is my biggest thing. So like business license, and I get that there are a lot of state requirements and stuff around that. I'm just generally not a fan. I'm not sure even I'm particularly a fan of municipal governments doing that, but licensing and permitting things because that tends to stomp on people's autonomy, and then it basically becomes a tax on your productivity or your how dare you, or give us a piece of that kind of thing, and then you get these public-private partnerships. Probably the biggest thing that's been called out by my fellow residents here, and that I will just point blank admit is seems like it doesn't belong, is this Chamber of Commerce link. And the Chamber of Commerce is it's nominally a private organization, private entity, nonprofit, right? So one question is like, what's a government site doing linking to that? I mean, you could say, oh, it's a business resource and all that, but like, anyways, you could raise lots of eyebrows and say, is the Chamber of Commerce part of the city government? How much do they collaborate, cooperate, etc.? Like, and just to be super clear, like my view of government is supposed to basically it's supposed to get out of the way so that you can live life. That's a good government. A government that leaves you alone and protects you whenever someone harms you, right? That's a good government. That's the sole reason for the existence of government. It's not to give special benefits to organization X, Y, or Z, or to pick winners and losers in business and government. So like business and development, like yes, there are public works, but anything that's not public works, why are our tax dollars going towards that? And so I actually wanted to give you this by way of an outline, and just as a carrot here, one of the items on the city council's agenda this evening was to take public comments on the fiscal year budget starting June 30th of this year and ending June 30th of 2026. So, and there are some items in there that we can get into just to understand what's going on and help us out there. But yeah, government itself, lots of things. I'll admit, I kind of get overwhelmed when I look at see this many things and like, unless I already know what I'm looking for. Oh yeah, recreation or parks or police or whatever. So I mean, it's a snazzy website and all, but the city government itself is actually the mayor and the city council, and so that's where we're going to go to try to figure out what they are about. So this is what I'm running for is the city council here, and you can see the lovely faces of our existing mayor and city council members. But of course, you want to like do something now, right? So ostensibly, you'd come here because you're like, hey, I have a grievance or something like that, or I have something that I become aware of in your public works or some project that you've been doing that's irritating me, or there's a road that needs fixing or whatever. So you come and you make your public comment here. And there have been some really interesting and fun, maybe fun's not the right word, but there have been some interesting and oftentimes perhaps productive. I think kind of meetings here. I remember shortly after we moved into here, I started watching some of the city council YouTube, which they have right here. They have a YouTube channel, so pretty cool, pretty accessible, pretty slick. They have things that they like to do little videos on and announce and stuff. Um, Live tab is where you'd go for city council meetings like the one that we just had. So you can go ahead and just go here and you can just watch the whole thing getting streamed or replayed. Anyways, so that's cool. I prefer showing up in person, obviously. If you have something to say, you got to show up ahead of time to give your public comment if you're going to do that for anything that they're taking public comment on. The agenda, okay, is posted online, and the administrative office is at least 24 hours in advance of each meeting. One little critique here is that that's not a lot of time for people to free up an evening if they do have some remarks that they want to give, and so you kind of have to scramble. You kind of have to just kind of set aside some time on Monday night to say, okay, I'm going to go review what the uh, agenda is for this next city council meeting, and they of course do have the power to publish it well in advance, but you can look at that as well. And so the agenda for if they have it. So you come over here to the agenda center, and I'm just like, wow, okay, I'm getting that overwhelm again to where I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of stuff. Board of Adjustment, Building Authority, Cemetery Committee, Beautification, and it's great if you've got a complaint or some input or something you want to know and you've got it dialed into which one of these you want to go to. That's great. But as far as like, there's really only one of these that's actually a government body, and it's this one, City Council. So like that should be like in my opinion, in at least a slightly more prominent place, a little bit more accessible. I've got a lot of feedback on like website design because there have been some kind of doozies with government and public-private partnerships lately. Anyways, so yeah, you can go here, grab the agenda. Let's just quickly do this. Let's walk through this because I don't want this to be a painful experience. But just to give you an aspect of what this looks like, if you wanted to, just it's I think it's a good practice. Um, Honestly, not the most romantic date night. You don't want to go here when you're trying to, you know, improve your relationship with each other probably. But good things to be aware of. All right, so public hearing, receive public comments on the amendment. So they're amending the municipal code on public disturbances. They changed it by an hour. They changed the amount of the number of hours to like 6 a.m. You can start making noise, and that's okay, as opposed to 7 a.m. kind of thing. Pretty run of the mill. Receive public comments on the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, city budgets. So this one is really important, and I was told that they are going to take this to a vote later, and hopefully there will also be public comments on that. What you can do if you miss the public comment period, you do have to show up before the meeting even starts, and they have a paper there that you have to fill out. I grabbed an extra copy of it. I don't have it right here, but you show up and you fill out this thing. You can say that, hey, yeah, I want to speak to something, and then they'll take that before the meeting even starts. But if you miss that window, what you can do if they're not already voting on it in the meeting is you can just email them. So you can go back to the mayor and council page, and this is what this is really helpful for, is because I think it's helpful to think of this basically as like, hey, these are your legislators, and this is your like president basically for your city. Your mayor presides over the city, right? So if you have some input for them, these are all part-time jobs, so like treat this accordingly, and you got to be respectful of their time. I know I'll appreciate that if I do end up in one of these offices, but like, if you do have a sincere concern, a really valid point that you want to raise, by all means, please do, because that's like everything to do with your city government needs good information to act on. So, and this is, I think, where these guys are acting at their finest, is when they're taking in this good information and transforming it into the policy that that makes the city run, and making good use of it. So, let's see, municipal officers' compensation increases. Okay, that's not why I'm running, by the way. it's not a lot of money. All right. Okay, and then you have a regular session, a brief set of reports, and so on, and then this common consent agenda. So yeah, and you can, anyway, they go through this whole thing and action items and so on, and then they adjourn the meeting, right? But like, to me, I think the most impactful of these, like, this is something just to watch out for, is you just gotta have eyes of a hawk and be like, oh yeah, uh, city budget, kind of a big deal, because we're talking about taxation and representation, right? So, you do have taxes that go towards the city budget, a lot of sales tax and all that goes to funding things here. So like, you're spending money, you know, and you have a right to be represented in how that money is spent. So this is what I showed up for mainly, is obviously you got the whole, all these business items, and yawn and don't fall asleep because you have something important coming up. But yeah, I guess just one takeaway here, high level, it's just don't be deceived by the nitty gritty in the trenches. There was plenty of self congratulatory stuff in there, patting each other on the back and say, hey, good job with this thing, good job with that thing, and it's not always self congratulatory, but they manage a lot of things, right? So if you have a parade coming up, you have a you know chamber of commerce event or whatever like that, you say, hey, good job guys for doing X, Y, and Z, right? So it is kind of, in my humble opinion, that's more just like fluff. If I had it my way, the city council agenda would just be like, hey, let's take in the public comment. Boom. Let's take in the public comment. Let's treat it seriously. I think all public comment really is entitled to getting mulled over for a reasonable period of time, to take that input seriously. Because I think too often, this is what I saw in the legislative session this year, up at the state capitol, is you say something in a committee hearing, and they're just like, oh, okay, we're going to pass it anyway, without really taking your input very seriously, unless you have like a massive financial groundswell that you're sitting on, then they are more likely to take you seriously. And that's just ludicrous. Anyways, so yeah, just a little bit of feedback, just kind of, I don't know, reactions here. But and the way to get any feedback implemented, of course, is just to offer it, and try to offer solutions, be part of the solution to the problem. But yeah, I'll just be honest. I don't get super jazzed about, yeah, go ahead and disperse XYZ fund, approve the minutes and so on. I'm just a lot of these are kind of perfunctory bullet items, and that's fine because not everything in government is glamorous, and that's the way it's intended. But like, I do love this. I love the fact that they have an agenda that's posted before the meeting in advance of it, and you can go and you can read this thing before they even meet, and uh, if you have a concern, you can go raise it. But yeah, I would just like to get some more lead time on some of these things too. But anyways, I was going to go dive into since the budget is the biggest thing. So I poked around on the website and I'm like, okay, we're gonna find budget, right? And if you go here, finance, click on finance, right? And a lot of things on the website are geared towards like how to pay the government money, right? Pay your bills and stuff. That's fine. But here's what we want. We want the accountability from our government. So you got fiscal year 2026 proposed budget. So this is what they went over. Sorry, pause 1 second. I'm just going to say also, like, this packet is enormous. Like, I guarantee no one read this packet before the meeting. It's got all kinds of stuff like, okay, adopted fee schedule, because they did make some fee schedule amendments and stuff. And it's just like, here's this giant, like, engineering guide, or not engineering guide, but I guess a bunch of regulations around like drainage structures and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's fascinating. We'll leave that one for the civil engineers. It's cool, and I'm glad we got civil engineers who figure stuff out. It's just, it's not my cup of thing. It's very fascinating. Don't get me wrong. It's just most people aren't going to read through that for a city council meeting. So again, if you get 300 pages or whatever for an agenda, it's kind of overwhelming. All right, so let's go to that budget. Proposed budget, yay! We're gonna go fund the clouds and the water. Where's this picture even taken? I'm not sure. Is that Utah Lake? Maybe. Looks kind of like it. All right, here we go. Yeah, I think it is. All right, so yeah, budget summaries, introduction, elected appointed officials, blah blah blah. So like, public officials getting paid for their work. That's great. You could dive into any of these things if you want to get some high level, budget process and overview, fund types, and management structure. My main thing is I'm just looking for like, hey, how do we alleviate the burden on families and individuals who are struggling? How do we cut the pork? How do we just watch out for those kinds of things? And yeah, I'll be kind of unabashed about this, frankly, because every government, from the federal down to the municipal, is frankly bloated. It's big. It's scary. It's got way too much police power at every level. And I'm not saying we need to eliminate police or anything like that, but just like, let's be careful about where our money goes. Careful enough that yes, we have a beautiful city to live in, but like we're also not picking and choosing winners and losers in private sector. So okay, general fund. There are a lot of things we could go. Public safety, police, fire and rescue. Okay, great, cool. This is like very standard stuff. But then you have special revenue funds, all right? And this is something that we are going to go into a little bit. Municipal Building Authority Fund, Fitness Center Fund, Park Tax Fund. And if you have like special expertise in any of these, that'd be great. Because like, please reach out and just like, and special expertise could simply be, hey, this thing affected my life and it affected my life in this way. Just lay that on me, please, because I don't have all the experience here. I don't think that any one individual in the city government or anywhere in the world has like an expert's view of every single one of these subjects. And this is a big deal because the purpose of a city council member largely is to take input from the people and ensure that the projects that we do, that whatever the funding go towards, isn't actually hurting anybody, right? And it's respecting everybody's rights, not stepping on people's toes. Like, this is one of the challenges of living in a city because there are some things where it's like, hey, we want to, you know, allow people to build buildings that are this tall and let people have this many chickens in the yard and stuff. And then you'll have people coming and complaining about those very things oftentimes. So, all right, celebration fund. Okay, I mean, I'll just state my take on that point blank is we don't need a municipal celebration fund. Let the people celebrate. You can have a parade without using any tax dollars. That's you might need to you might need to section off a road. You might need to get the police to do the road closure and all that. But and maybe that's what this is going for, right? But downtown redevelopment fund, east side redevelopment fund, business park redevelopment. So you have all these things that are redevelopments, egg farm economic development fund, Patriot Station community reinvestment area. So like, yeah, and these are special revenue funds. So like, I'm looking at these things and I'm like, okay, each one of these is definitely something that you'd want to examine. Putting on my Department of Government Efficiency hat here, and it's not to slash people's uh, income or anything like that if they've earned something. But all right, anyways, capital projects. Yeah, general capital projects, road capital, bond capital, capital equipment, blah blah blah. So the city does have to maintain some things, right? Um, and more capital investments, internal service funds, etc., enterprise funds, permanent funds. Like you could look at all this and say, yeah, this is all dandy, right? And they have okay, growth planning. Yeah, this is one of the areas where we probably do have the most disagreements. Actually, oh, there's something really good in here that I was going to show you. Where did it go? They have a chart. They have a chart of go. There it is. Yeah, top issues in American Fork community input. I like this because they're taking input from people saying, hey, what are your biggest problems here in our town? Like, and number one is like poor road quality. It's like, okay, all right, that's in the charter. We should ensure the roads are well maintained, right? Second up, this is actually really big in my town. Too much growth and density. There were a whole bunch of apartment complexes that were put in just on the other side of the freeway down by the lake, and that has caused a lot of chagrin because it affects my commute. Frankly, it makes things considerably longer. I'm in a very peaceful neighborhood, very quiet, very you know easy to get in and out. And in the past 6 years, it's gotten quite a bit harder to get in and out. Added time onto my commute, so I'm actually not as happy about that. Um, Obtaining the fitness center, taxes and fees are too high, lack of affordable housing. That's actually a huge one. I think the reason why that's so low is because a lot of American Fork residents have actually been here for quite a while. They're more established. They got in before things got super pricey. Um, Need for high-speed internet, ensuring a safe community, lack of new parks. You can kind of get a picture of this. Um, Anyways, so that's a cool thing. Just wanted to call that out. But I'm just probably going to pick out. I'm going to pick on maybe two of these projects, two or three, uh, and this is my biggest single category, I guess, of pushback concern. Because I get the whole, roads and post offices and stuff. That is a federal constitutional mandate. So the federal government takes care of those things, and there are analogous responsibilities at the municipal level that are generally agreed upon that the municipalities should take care of, and the tax dollars are fine to go towards. Yeah, we want well maintained roads. That was single biggest item there is we want the roads to be maintained. But then there are other things that could be considered public works. My take on those is that you need an amendment to your charter, your city charter, if you're going to if you're going to have the city take responsibility for various things like, you know, fiber, fiber optic internet or something like that, and offer it as a service utility. My personal view is I don't trust the government with our private communications. I think this is something that we should take more responsibility for and step up to do. And we got to really be careful because the government can put its thumb on the scale whenever that we let them, and by allocating tax funds or loan guarantees and things like that to help certain companies come in and do those things for us. And so that could blur the line, public-private partnerships. But anyways, so this one biggest thing, economic development. So the city recognizes the need to develop the city's economic base to provide necessary services such as roads, recreation, and public safety to citizens. Okay, roads, recreation, public safety, and like generally speaking, I mean like recreation. I'm not 100% sure like how relevant that is to the city's charter. I don't think it is completely relevant, honestly. Um, if the people want to put it in there, I suppose they have the freedom to do that, but I don't think it's inherently there. But like economic development, it's like, yeah, obviously you want to like you want people to be productive, right? But big caveat here. This is basically the argument that is used to install socialism nationwide and worldwide, frankly, is that the government should take responsibility for the economic development and well-being of its people. And that's true with respect to the do no harm principle. But I would say it is glaringly false anytime you're looking at, um, oh, what can the government do to put a thumb on the scale to, you know, encourage or promote or incentivize economic development? That to me just really gets into the territory. I don't think this is a subjective thing either. It's a matter of principle that if your government is spending your tax dollars to bring in certain businesses, for example, that's a problem. Or to cater to a certain industry sector, that's a problem. That should be something that is decided exclusively by the people themselves through their own pocketbooks, right? Their own pocketbooks and their own employment choices, right? And while you want to have an environment where people can come in and do business because it's the regulatory burden is like low to no pressure, um, and you have space and opportunity and people who are willing to work, great, awesome, go you, come in and establish your business here, or people who already live here, set up your business here, right? We want that, but I really do question, and this is a matter for city council members to answer, current city council members to say, um, you know, by what authority would you invoke, you know, this funding apparatus to say we need to incentivize and foster economic development, right? So yeah, and this is something that a lot of cities do because they have these nice fancy packets and they have these tourist pamphlets and brochures and stuff, and they want to have bragging rights. They want to be able to say, "Oh, look at our city, we are doing X, Y, and Z." The reason why they do that, by the way, is so that they can pull in more funds from the outside. I think that's pretty straightforward. Is if you have some super duper bragging rights in your town, and you can draw more investment from other areas, make it more appealing to other people, then basically you get more money, right? You get more credibility. You get a if I can put it this way, if you're in it for a political career making uh, maneuver, then if you're the mayor or a city council member in a city that is widely recognized as extremely prosperous and successful and everything, then that actually weighs for significantly that counts for significantly more than if you're, you know, city council member or mayor of some podunk town that nobody's ever heard of that's you know, riddled with potholes, you know. So it has a low standard of living. So yeah, like there's definitely an incentive here that you're detecting, right? To say we want our city to be awesome, we want our city to be great, and yeah, to a great extent, who doesn't, right? But let's be aware of this economic development thing, and there are a couple of specific projects here. Let me see if I can. Sorry, I'm like tabbing up and down here. I apologize if that's giving you nausea or anything like that. Let me go back to the page numbers because there are a couple of these projects in particular I wanted to look at. Oh yeah, the egg farm development. It's always all the way on page 142. So this thing's kind of massive, right? I don't know that anybody's actually going through the entire budget with a fine tooth comb either, and that's kind of concerning because, like, you know, you want each one of these things to be pretty well considered. So yeah, special revenue funds are 132 to 143. So I'm just going to try to jump there. It's like, who makes all this stuff? Anyway, sorry. And don't get me wrong, like we need the financial numbers. It's like there does very quickly come a point where I'm just like, I think our government's trying to do too much. I sincerely think that it's trying to take upon itself to manage and micromanage too many aspects of the people's lives. And this might be an unpopular opinion. Fitness center was kind of high on the list, but like, should the city government be funding a public fitness center? My humble opinion is no. I think that's something that should be privatized. I don't see any justification for that in the charter. All right, but there's even more kind of just funny one: downtown redevelopment fund, business revolving loan. Like, the city government shouldn't be issuing loans to businesses. Is that a controversial statement? Like, can I just say this? I did my live stream last week on Spencer Cox's Utah Governor Spencer Cox's Build Council, and a couple of the things that raised really big red flags for me about that is it's a carbon copy basically of the Beehive Development Agency, which was a program that was being fleshed out by the state legislators. And this Beehive Development Agency, troublingly, had its own mechanisms for fundraising, for creating policy, and for enforcing policy and adjudicating its own everything. So it's basically a shadow government that has its own funding machine, and so it can raise funds from the people, but without representation by the people, right? And there are no accountability mechanisms. That's deeply disturbing, and it's framed as this kind of almost like non-governmental, kind of a public-private partnership. But oh, don't worry, it's got private players, and therefore you feel represented, but you're really not, because those private players are actually in cahoots with the government, quite frankly. And so, yeah, so you see the same pattern here actually, and honestly, that's pretty concerning to say, huh? Why are we issuing loans? Like, why tell me why our municipal government is underwriting a business? Like businesses should underwrite themselves, or if they want to find a private lender, let them do it. But like, yeah, um, so like the public works aspect, like people have agreed X, Y, and Z are public works, and they've written it into their city charter. They voted that in. That's cool, right? But I'm just raising an eyebrow here now. Say, what are we doing with lending stuff? Um, the East Side Development Fund. Okay, so this is something that really actually bugs me. Um, the Redevelopment Agency Fund. What's our government doing? Creating agencies and project areas. What on earth is a project area when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? So the goal. Listen to this. I'm going through a few more of these than I guess I outlined at the beginning, but it's because there's something of interest to be learned from each of these ones, and there are only really a handful of them that are here. But the goal of the East Main RDA project area is to incentivize the commercial and industrial development of several blocks along Main Street and American Fork, where conditions of blight were determined to be present. So blight is just an economic situation of deterioration, kind of flagging of economic growth and presence and participation. And I've sensed that as a resident here for a number of years. I've walked and go for runs down Main Street here, and just you notice there are like weedy, overgrown, like empty lots, and there are rundown buildings, and there are multiple buildings right now that are having going out of business sales because they can't stay solvent in today's economy, because things have changed so much. And part of that is to be expected, I guess, with natural churn, but they're not really being replaced. There's a lot of vacancy, right? And or the new things are just kind of really zany things that don't really belong, honestly, and they're coming with the funding from outside. So I don't want our city to be overtaken by others. I believe this prime business space right here in the corridor of our city should be run by people who live here. Ideally, that should be the normal case, because otherwise you're commuting to a different town to do business, and that just 9 times out of 10 just does not make sense unless it's a specialized thing, right? But a lot of these storefronts, anyways, you could walk down, and it's yeah, I agree with the assessment of economic blight. Yeah, it's gotten kind of crummy, honestly. And it's not necessarily the city's responsibility to solve that problem. We should be doing stuff that makes a better climate, for people to come in and do this, but yeah, fund will continue to receive haircut monies until 2025. Okay, so and they got interest earnings and stuff. My humble opinion: governments should have no business managing investment funds or earning interest. It's just what is that muddies waters with the private sector, and I can explain my views more on that if anybody's interested. But I think in all this, I really do want input from people who have experience with this. If you're an American Fork resident, please give me your input. If you've seen similar programs in your city elsewhere, yeah, give me your feedback because I'd love to learn more. Let's see, there's one business park development. So there's another project, incentivize commercial and industrial development. Like, guys, the way to incentivize people to do business is just don't raise their cost of living and don't pick and choose winners and losers. I think it's pretty simple, and then you just maintain the public works. The fact that they have these separate funds just it does deeply concern me. This one is kind of comical, honestly. I think the Egg Farm EDA Fund, Economic Development Area, was created to account for the revenues and expenditures of the Egg Farm EDA project area. Created in September 2000, the goal of the Egg Farm EDA project area is to incentivize the commercial and industrial development of a former chicken farm in American Fork City. Okay, so just like unvarnished subsidies, right? Is that is that fair to state? And yeah, if I'm on a city council and they say, hey, let's earmark all this funding for this egg farm, I'm like, no, guys, like let the private market figure this out. And if there are things that we can do to get out of their way so that they can do business more efficiently, more effectively, more profitably, then by all means let's do so. Let's take away the regulations, that are stifling competition or preventing people from having the boldness and the courage and the faith to step up and actually conduct their own business. But like there have been an enormous number of chilling factors and disincentives for people to do business here in the United States. And it's not something that your municipal government can just solve by snapping their fingers either. And they're certainly not helping it, by the way, by spending subsidy money. If anything, if they had any role at all in this, I would say it would be to raise awareness of the challenges that we face, where those challenges are coming from, and how to address them. One thing that I would point everyone to is I've been raising the alarms on this for many, many years. Smarter Every Day. He's a fairly popular YouTuber. He teaches all kinds of really cool stuff. He has like my dream job in that respect. I have massive respect for him. But he just put out a couple days ago a show where he said we tried to make a product fully in the United States, and he goes through like all the challenges and the hurdles that have been placed on that. City of American Fork, by the way, used to have so still has every summer what are called Steel Days, because the city used to be home to a lot of people. A lot of the residents used to be workers at the Geneva Steel Plant, right down in Vineyard, just a town just barely south of us, and that's gone thanks to the Environmental Protection Agency and various other special interest groups and lobbyists and so on. Um, and so like our identity as a town is gone because our productivity is gone. And if you wanted to emasculate people, if you wanted to take away their hope, you take away their means of production. That's what socialism is, right? Take away the means of production, tuck it away somewhere else, out of sight, out of mind, and you throttle them so horribly. But so I would love to see that restored. That's not going to happen through subsidies. Subsidies are the absolute worst possible way of going about that, because what that means is you end up working for the government when everything should be private sector, and the government's picking and choosing winners and losers. That is socialism. It's evil. It's Satan's plan. Period. But Smart Every Day, his video on this was going through and just the process of like how complicated it is to procure parts and to get things manufactured locally. But there's a groundswell. There's a movement there. There is a lot of hunger in the United States for stuff made here in America, and I'm a part of that. I want to be a big part of that because like I feel the pain of searching for like 4 months. I kid you not, 4 months of searching just to find just to try to find whether or not something is manufactured in the United States, available anywhere anymore, only to find that it isn't. Like, it literally doesn't exist. There's all the factories that used to make this, household commodity staple item are just gone, right? And so, yeah, if we wanted to incentivize economic development in our town, what we need to do is deregulate. What we need to do is raise awareness, frankly, of the root causes of the problem, and act as a buffer, act as a shield against those regulations and against the economic forces, the subsidy pressure that's coming from our federal government and through the state government and through our county to, basically Spencer Cox's build council, right? Stand up to those guys and say, hey, whoa, wait a minute. You're trying to subsidize everything. You're trying to get everybody to work for the government. We reject that. We assert what's called home rule, meaning in our town, we actually get to make our own rules, right? We aren't beholden to follow the unconstitutional edicts of some federal potentate, or the aspirations and ambitions of a state governor who's not or legislature who aren't staying within the confines of the state constitution, right? And so we can have I don't want to call it a more expansive charter, but we can have a more assertive charter to, for example, protect our financial interests. And I can go more into detail on that, but basically your municipal charter and your municipal code can actually trump the state law and trump any executive orders, any build council stuff, shenanigans. You don't have to do what they tell you to do, and you don't have to take their money. I think this is the most important thing, is if we're going to have an effective municipal government and actually avoid the creep of socialism and actually have a chance of sustaining our own businesses and our own interests, then what we need to do is we need to stop taking state funding. We need to stop taking federal funding. We need to stop taking money from whoever's trying to push it on us from outside to get us to do things. That's how those developments cropped up. It wasn't the will of the people here. It was developers coming in with money and saying, "Ooh, we want to build there," and the government being like, "Oh, okay, here you go. You get priority. Never mind the existing residents. Never mind how it's going to affect their quality of life, right?" So, yeah, I do have those criticisms. Any constructive debate, any input, feedback on that, please reach out, because I know this is affecting people's quality of life. It's not. I have nothing against the people who've moved into the apartments down there. I love them. A lot of them are in my congregation and so on that I attend for church, and we're friends, we're buddies, we're neighbors. But we can we at least recognize when things are being mismanaged to the point where it is making the quality of life worse. And it is making things less appealing for people to do business in general. Not just less appealing, but it's actually less feasible because our financial resources are being drained. Anyways, not here to pin everything on the municipal government, but I am saying we can provide a powerful check against all the pressures from the outside, right? And we recognize that we've been blackmailed by the United States government, federal government, as a state, and we're currently being, we're being betrayed by a state government. Frankly, is I don't know of a nicer way to say that, and we need to push back. And all these outside interests, we don't have to just like sit back and be like, oh no, we have no control over the destiny of our city. But yeah, I just invite people wherever you live, please differentiate between like things that look good on, a politician's resume, things they can brag about that they did for the city or the county or whatever. We did this project and that project. We moved this much money and this cool big dollar amount. It's like, that's great, guys, but like, what's the quality of life for the average individual? Like, what's the actual impact on the people, their finances, their liberties? So that's the huge red flag that I would say. Just yeah, I don't want us subsidizing an egg farm. I get that the price of eggs is high, or was, right, and still is imperiled by various government projects and programs. But subsidies aren't the answer. Government intervention isn't the answer. So. Just let people have the freedom that they need, and no, you won't always be able to. I'll put it this way: you could have an awesome city government that honors and protects people's rights and respects them and you're doing everything right, and you could still be economically stagnant as a town just because the people who live there, uh, I don't know, aren't particularly gutsy to go and try to be an entrepreneur or make more or go into business or whatever. And to a great extent, that's okay. That's not the government's problem to solve, right? Our purpose shouldn't be to raise the next generation of tax cattle. Our purpose, or even to lure in investors from elsewhere and have a net, advantage of productivity versus other places. Of course, we love to see people being productive because that could be evidence of good management in your government and so on. But um, I'll just say I don't have the ambition to go and congratulate myself for look how well sector XYZ of the government is doing because we're propping it up with subsidies. I'm not interested in that at all. I would run the other way. And so this is likely to be a point of disagreement, I guess, at many points with other city council members. But I think these issues need to be raised. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please write to me, message me, and write to your city council members. Get involved, get aware, and yeah, raise eyebrows more because there are quite frankly just a lot of things we shouldn't be doing. And we'll probably hear the argument a lot of the time. Oh, but if we don't do it, then we're just letting them fail. Like I'm like, yeah, we need to let businesses fail. Honestly, if we're I don't feel good about taxing Paul and Susie and Gene to go and bail out some business or give them a loan or whatever. That's not my business, right? If people want, if the private market wants it to endure, then they'll make a way. Our job is to insulate them against the overreach that's made doing business here in America difficult. All right, that's all for tonight. Went a little long, but thanks for bearing with me, and we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.